Welcome to the thisABILITY Adventures podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson.
And I'm Chip Dodd from Team thisABILITY. All right, here we are with another race ramble. This time it is the Hogback race near Chattanooga. What was the name of that forest that was down there? Is it Ocoee?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were at the Ocoee
Ocoee.
YMCA camp, right?
That's right. And this was a race put on by Warrior. And this was a special race. I have been begging race directors in general, but Jeff specifically, to do like a stage race because, you know me, I love to talk and visit with people and see everybody in the community and talk to people about the podcast. And so Jeff, I think he was kidding, but maybe not. He said, we made this race specifically for you, so you have to come. It was way out of our way. It was like a 9-hour drive, and Andrea had to fly out, and I had to drive. It took me because I only want to drive a little bit every day. But it was a 12-hour race day one on Saturday and an 8-hour race on day two. And so it was back to back with an evening of awards and fun and people chit-chatting and all of that. And you go back to sleep and you get up and you do it the next day. So I think this is maybe the first time we've ever done this other than the Stockville, which is a trekking course. So I was super excited about this. So with us on the call, we have Andrea Anderson and Mark Bolyard. So we were a 3-person co-ed during this race. And as usual, we went into this race guns blazing. So this should be a pretty fun race ramble about what went right, what went wrong during these two races.
I think we should talk just a little bit more about the design of the weekend because it was pretty cool. And all of the people in the area that we were at in the YMCA camp were associated with the race. So there were people camping in tents, people camping in vans, people that had rented the cabins, and then there were some bunk bed style rooms in the lodge. And I thought that was really neat to have us all together. It was really fun too to socialize with the people that were just out and about. Like everybody knew you were there for the race, and that made it really cool.
Yep. And they had packages, so you could get like dinner on Friday and Saturday and Sunday and different cabin options. And so it was really a little bit of a festival feel instead of just a race.
Yeah, I thought it was really kind of a cool event based, like you said, where everybody was hanging out. It was kind of a little chill, in between the races. Everybody was just kind of relaxing, talking and chatting. And, it was a lot of fun.
I have to say, though, the prep for a weekend like that was just totally different. It was a lot easier to get ready for a 12-hour race than some of the races that, are the multi-day races. But then going to bed and getting up again the next day, I had a hard time, like, really feeling like I wanted to get up. I almost
Especially in the rain.
Yeah, I almost thought it would be a little bit easier almost to race 24 hours through or something. But that could also be the speed we were going, because having it a 12-hour and an 8-hour, like we were pushing it the whole time. And especially day two, I was like, oh, I was working a lot harder, it felt like, than I was on day one. What did you guys think about having two separate races, one after the other?
I liked it a lot. I think the hard part for me is the mental aspect of being about 8.5 hours into the first day, and then going through in your mind that you had another 8-hour race the next day and you couldn't just drive home. That was what got me, and I was like, oh my God, this gonna be hard to get going the next day. But I was really surprised when I woke up. I felt pretty good on Sunday, surprisingly, and felt pretty smooth through the day. But at the last 2 to 3 hours of the 12-hour on Saturday, my brain wasn't telling me that it was going to be a good day.
Especially as we're climbing a 300-foot incline at the end of this race, trying to go fast. Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. The location too is pretty neat because the 12-hour race started on the lake, and we boated to a TA where we started a bike leg And then we had some neat options of when during that bike leg that we would do the trek leg. So we had some strategy in there and then got back to the TA and paddled back to the finish. So I thought that was a pretty cool design.
Totally. It's
So maybe
Josh.
we should
What's his
talk
last
about
name? The race designer. Do you remember his last
Josh
name?
Braun.
Yeah.
Braun.
I think this was the first time we'd done one of his races, and in both races, I was really impressed with the everything about it. Really, the design of it, the course strategy options. There was tons of options that teams could decide: do I go left? Do I go right? Clockwise or counterclockwise? Or when do I do this? When do I do that? The CPs, a lot of them were kind of tough navigationally, so you really had to kind of know where you were and do a lot of pace counting and everything. As far as I know, all the CPs were pretty much in the right spot. I don't remember having any Easter egg hunts. They had one glitch on the map or the clue was wrong, and they fixed that before we got started. So, all in all, I was really, really impressed with the race design. And that's one thing I do like about Warrior. It's kind of like, yeah, it's the Warrior brand, but it's not the same race director at every race. It's like, you go to Chattanooga and maybe Jim Farmer's your race designer. And then now you do Josh over here in this other area. And then you go to C2C and it's somebody different. So I really
I
like that.
volunteered the last 2 years or last 2 of the last 3 years for his race, being that I'm close. So I was kind of excited to actually race it because I always felt like the course design was really good and challenging and kind of took you to areas that were really cool.
Totally. The other thing is interesting, going back to what Andrea was saying about this versus expedition, and we just covered that on one of our last podcasts. Like sometimes we downplay the shorter races or whatever, or maybe our other people on the call do. But we went into this kind of thinking about that. Was like, okay, what is the difference? And the gear list on this was like minimal, right? You didn't even need a rain jacket. It was like basically first aid kit, backpack, whistle, knife or something. It was like you just could go bareback. And so
we didn't even need a headlamp or a space blanket. Like I felt so light. That was really, really cool.
Yeah. No extra batteries, no all of that stuff. You just basically food, water, whistle, like you said, and you're done.
And no gear bend. It was like you put stuff on your bike or in your paddle bag or in your life jacket, whatever, but there's no gear bend. So it's like the minute you start it, your stuff's out there. You need to be self-sufficient, but it's 12 hours. You don't need 26 cheeseburgers to get through a race. So either way, I thought that was a lot of fun. It was definitely different, but definitely the heart rate was higher. I think all of us were pushing really hard, trying to just go really fast. And, every little minute counts. Like when you're in an 8-day race, like, oh, well, what's 8 minutes? And the race is 12 hours. It seems like every minute's an hour. It definitely was much faster pace than we're used to.
Totally agree with that. And I don't even know, I'd be hard pressed to say which I like better. They're just so different. Like this race reminded me how much I do like that shorter length of race. But you're right, like it feels like mistakes are a lot more critical, like
amplified.
Yes.
Yep.
Like when you're trying to get a CP every 15 minutes or something like that, 2 minutes is a big percentage of the time it took if you made a 2-minute error. I don't know. It's fast and fun.
Yeah, they're both definitely different and in their each little ways, but it's fun both ways. It kind of is like, well, makes you like each aspect of them.
Yeah. And we usually talk about the roles in our team at the beginning of our race rambles. And Chip did the nav on the bike and Mark did the nav on the foot and paddle. And Mark was also the punch monkey. He just bounded up those mountains. Like you are just so strong on foot. That was really, really awesome. And we really didn't have really many mistakes, but I think the couple that we should talk about were in the trek. But so the first time we had a decision, the paddle was pretty straightforward to the TA. And then when you got there, you could choose whether you go for all of the bike points before you do the trek or a few of the bike points and which direction are you going to get them. And we decided to go clockwise. And that meant that we were only getting 1 point before we decided to stop at the next TA and do the trek. And I think that was a learning from the previous race. Like, it seems like the lessons we learned in the race just most recently is what we usually try to apply to the next race. So we went for those points, partially because they were an unknown. So like, if we're thinking, we don't know if we're going to have time for the whole course, we should at least go do the unknowns first. Like, so we did that trek section. And that's where we got into a little bit of trouble.
And when you say unknown, just for listeners, they handed us the maps when we get to the TA. So we had no map prep for that trek. We knew how many points were on it, but we didn't know how spread out it was or how many hours it was going to take. And so I think our strategy was, let's get up there and do that trek because we know the bike. Although there was another trek section, the paddle had a secret trek section that was another unknown. But either way, I liked our strategy where we got to that trek as quick as possible, got the maps, knocked it out, and then we could kind of plan our way back because if we thought we were running out of time, we could have cut some bike points.
And also, as far as overall strategy, that's a good reminder that we were going to go for everything and we hoped it was clearable. I think Jeff had said, or maybe Josh had said, that maybe 4 or 5 teams would be able to clear it, which that was not the case. Nope. Technically, no one cleared it. The team ahead of us finished 17 seconds late, so they got like 1 point taken away. But we dropped 3 points. And when we decided, like, our overall strategy, like I said, we did the bike to do the unknowns of that first trek, knocked those out. And then there was another trek at the end that we thought if we need to drop anything, that's where we would drop it because we could go as hard as we could until then.
And from a logistics standpoint, we did a good job because we went by that area on the way in. So we had timed it out very well. So we knew exactly when do we need to get back in the boat to make it to the finish. And I think that was really smart on our part because I think we didn't know where that trek was going to be, but we knew it was from the paddle. But I think we had tracked where CP4 was and the TA. So we were able to backmath it and neat because all the other teams did the same thing. So all of a sudden teams are just popping out of the woods at the same time. We had an armada heading to the finish. Everybody on the same timing. Thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I love that design where everybody is coming in around the same time. And, this is jumping ahead, but once again, about 10 minutes per kilometer was our estimate. I think we got down to 8 minutes per K when we were really pushing, but that's what we based it on. And
on the paddle.
Yeah. Of course, when we took off the prologue points, there were 2, and we did like a little bushwhack that some other teams didn't do. And we took off from that paddle right next to the Oswalds, the flight, so father-son team. And they took off on the paddle and were instantly ahead of us and remained ahead of us the whole race. But I just have to say, those freaking paddle seats, that was like my low of the whole race. Like, we haven't raced as a threesome in our team for a long time. So I haven't had to be in that middle canoe seat for a long time. And in that particular boat, there's no like molded out little divots for your butt, like how it's usually shaped like your butt. There was nothing like that. It's just there is a seat, but there's no back, and it was just a flat surface. And I was wearing my trim tight pants that I kept like sliding back and forth when I was paddling. And I was so grumpy. I think I complained more like in that first paddle than some other races combined. Like, it just, and so what and I was not sticking to the seat. So I actually pulled down my Trimtex pants so that I was just sitting on my like underwear my butt would stick to the seat and I wouldn't slide around. But it still hurt so bad because my seat bones were just like, they literally hurt a few days after the race. That's how hard it was. But I had told somebody, I told Milan Petkov, we saw him in the race quite a bit, and I was telling him about my woes. And he said, "Oh, well, I've got this pad that you can use." I'm like, "Oh, phew." So he loaned it to me for the next day. And then I tried to give it back to him and he's like, no, just keep it. It was only $5 from wherever it was from. And I needed to mention him. Thank you, Milan. That was really saved my butt, literally. And I will never, ever not have some sort of padding if I'm in the middle seat of the canoe.
Yeah. I
And
did
I
not
have
know
learned
you
that
got that
before.
pad.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't have that because I've had that problem before. But anyway, moving on from the
So if
paddle.
anybody does a warrior race, they use a boat where the middle seat is there, but it is not comfortable. So bring something to sit on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like an old town canoe, I think, whatever it is. So we did the paddle. That was pretty straightforward. We get to the bike. I think that was my low. The minute the minute we get on the bike, we start going uphill for like ever, like hours. It felt like just nonstop uphill. I start overheating. My heart rate's through the roof. I had to take off my shirt. I'm just wearing the race bib and cool down a little bit. But I think my heart rate was like 165, 170 getting up that hill. So I don't know what it was. You guys were just smoking me.
I think my low was the bike back down. That was some technical.
Yep.
That was in just a lot of it, and it's always like when you're biking and boating in rapids or you're biking really technical, you've got to be both physically and mentally on to not, parts of that bike was like straight down the mountain on your left-hand side. And, I don't think I'm bad technical, but when you're tired and pushing, it's like it takes a lot out of you just to stay upright.
Yeah, it was chunky. It was
Yeah.
really rocky, chunky. Like I was proud of myself for riding a lot of that. Like I thought that was kind of cool that they put something that challenging in a race because you can always walk your bike. I don't think anyone got hurt. I did fall once during that, but it was because it was just a tight switchback, that hairpin turn that I fell in slow motion. I didn't get hurt or anything, but yeah, that was challenging.
It was chunky enough there. Some of those sections you had to walk it. It wasn't a single track. It was just a hiking trail with some rocky sections. And it was like, especially with a map board on, it was like, whoa, I am not doing this. I am walking.
Well, like you said, with a map board, and then it wasn't just like a slow drop off to the side. It was straight down and pretty far down. There wasn't much stopping you for a while if you went over to the left.
You're ragdolling for a bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we were all thankful that we chose to do that bike in the direction that we did, because some people would have gone counterclockwise and would have hiked their bike up that.
Oh, yeah. No, I was thinking that while we were going down it, because that would not have been fun going up.
No way.
That was a good decision on our part, I think.
We're taking way longer for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we get to the trek. What do we remember about the trek? I guess, Mark, you're on nav primarily.
Yeah. I mean, I think it started off really well. I think we nailed our decisions pretty much up until the final 2 points. Out in that farther outer section, we were doing a good job of just going off of known points, distances, and that's what we kind of did, because you started off that section and we were like, okay, I can't remember if it was like 700 meters, I think it was, to where we were supposed to turn off.
Yep.
And you had said, we were kind of going along this gravel road, and you had said, do you think it's down there? And I had seen the paths going in, and number one, it didn't match the time. Right. And at the time I looked, it didn't match the map, at least to what I was thinking at that moment. So I think if I didn't know the time, I might have looked harder at the map. But because I was thinking about the time, I didn't look hard enough at the map. And so I quickly just said no. And we just kept going for a little while. And then, gosh, not long after that, then I started saying, things just aren't matching up. We're going the wrong direction. So we kept going a little farther, and we'd look at it and go a little farther. And just finally we were like, okay, this
too far.
And then you started to say, do you remember that road I told you about? And then for a little bit there, I was like, no, I don't remember that. I think it was just such a quick decision.
Right. And we were running. That's the thing I noticed, especially with orienteering. You start making mistakes the higher your heart rate gets. And we were trying to push so hard. Like we were running the downhills and the flats. It's hot outside. We're chugging up the hills, hiking. But that's another thing is like it threw our timing all off because it's hard to time it when you're walking up some hills and you're running down others. And so that road pops up. We all think it's way too early, that the time hadn't gone by enough, dismiss it. And then we keep running. And then now 12 minutes later, we're like, wait a second. Now the time is telling us we definitely have missed it. And yeah, so that sucked.
I think more the problem, not necessarily our heart rate, but that we were timing it only and we didn't pace count. And we were going back and forth between running and walking. So our timing couldn't be good because we weren't even, we just didn't have a standard. We should have, I think if we did it again, oh, you said 700 meters. I mean, that is pretty far to pace count, but it's possible. But either way, we should have stayed, if we were going to time it, we should have stayed consistent with what speed we were going. If we're going to time it, then we need to stay, at our fast walk, our, 100 meters per minute.
And
walk.
that terrain there was a little challenging too, because it wasn't up in that section we were at. It wasn't super steep. It was kind of rolling. And so like, I remember looking, we kept looking off to the right, and you couldn't at times, because of the brush and stuff, you couldn't see the undulations just past you because it was a little bit throwing me off just on that section.
Yeah, it was tricky.
And then the next point, and then also we forget to mention that we notice our error. We come running back down the road. As we're running back down the road to turn in where we didn't turn, guess who pops out of the trail? So
that's right.
And that pushes us a little bit. So
yeah, and I think we decided at that point they were 20 minutes in front of us, so we knew. I don't think they saw us. But yeah.
But did you know? See, I have not had a chance to go back and look at their course. They did not go from that point to the 12. I think that was 13. They didn't go down to 12. They did a different order than we did.
Okay.
So, because they went back down the road, and then I think they must have gone back down to another one of the points and then attacked that creek point from a different direction, kind of down that trail.
No, I think they, tell you what, I'll just do a quick screen share and see.
Because I asked Charles, the dad, what he did, and he didn't go to 12 like we did.
I had it. There we go. Okay. Sorry. I had to go through like all my desktop things open. Okay. So this is the 12-hour, and I'm going to select flight. So I think they popped in on that very similar. Okay. So what we're showing for people that are on the podcast, we're actually showing the dot watch map because luckily Adventure Enablers or enabled tracking was doing tracking during this, although they didn't work very well during the race, but after the race, all the data gets uploaded and you can see stuff. So, what we're looking at is where flight and flight looked like their nav was pretty clean, and we had a couple errors. So you can see this is the first point that we went too far, but it looks like they attacked it. What we did, they basically took a compass bearing and shot right at it. We came around and then dropped in on it.
Isn't that our track?
No, this is flight.
Oh, that's flight?
This is flight. So they dropped in the same way we did it. But if you notice, they went through that clearing more basically straight from it. And then we saw that road around. So let me go ahead and click back over to us.
Well, see, they came from 12 to 13 versus we went 13 to 12.
Okay.
So you see what I'm saying? They came from the point up to the road, whereas we took the road down to the point. And so that's the difference in the order they went.
Okay, that makes sense. But see, they shot straight through that. We dropped around, followed that road down, which put us a little too far south on that trail, which is, I think, why we got turned around in there, and then kind of realized our error and then went up and found that point.
Yeah, that was messy. And if we had gone their direction, they would have seen that CP. You could see that CP from the trail. So they would have had a lot easier time finding it coming at it from that other direction.
Yep.
And that's the one, navigation learning is in that circumstance when you're trying to, especially in hindsight, it would have been nice to know that that creek was so rhododendron thick, you couldn't see off. Of course, the checkpoint was right off the trail, but when we were looking for it, it was back in all that thick. So, like you suggested, Chip, is I wish at that point I would have just gone ahead and navigated off to the left, overshot it a certain direction so that we knew we had to go to the right versus I was trying to hit it as dead on as I could, which was probably the error I made there.
And if I remember correctly, the map was showing kind of a spur, but when I'm looking at the topo here on the tracker, it wasn't a spur. It was very, so it would have been hard for us without doing a bearing or whatever to shoot at it. But also, if you notice, where we came in on the road and then followed that dirt road around, it definitely threw us in south of the point.
Yep.
And that's tough because like we said earlier, like basically if you're getting a point every 15 minutes, then if you waste 15 minutes looking for a point, you've given up a point, right? So it's like both of these combined may have cost us 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So which means that was 2 checkpoints that we missed later on that we could have hit. So this was really hard. I mean, Josh did a good job of designing this course so that basically to clear it, you had to have flawless nav. And Flight got very close to having flawless nav through this. I didn't see many errors that they had done.
And maybe not even just flawless nav, but the best route. What point was it where Mark and I wanted to bushwhack and you wanted to take the road, but we bushwhacked and we got to the closer towards the bottom and kind of got clipped out a little bit. And, we were able to make it down.
It was pretty straightforward nav because you just had to kind of basically go down a spur to the creek is what we thought. And the lines did look kind of close, but we were like, they're not going to be that bad. And Chip is like, gosh, we should have gone around to the trail. That's faster. Me and Andrew are like, no, let's go. So we're bushwhacking down and we get down to a 20-foot, maybe 25-foot cliffed out, there's the creek. And and we basically had to rappel down using rhododendron. That was kind of fun.
It was fun.
Felt like monkeys. I remember I directed either one or both of you to spot me because I wasn't quite tall enough to feel where to put my feet. Yeah.
But
it wasn't quite as bad as Arthur the King. But
we did find the checkpoint though, right there. So we did hit it right on. So
yeah, we don't know if it took more or less time, but our nav was good. Our route might not have been good, was my point. So
we got it all on video. That was the good thing is Andrew and I are arguing back and forth. And I'm like, I think I'm getting righter. It's getting steep. Chip was right on this one.
Yeah, and probably it won't look as steep as it really was in the cameras. Right. But
video should be out soon.
Yeah. But we got back on the bikes and that was fun. That was when we ran into Irrational Confidence, the all-female team there with
which
Sarah
they
Goldman.
are super freaking strong bikers. I was like, oh my God, we would pass them a little bit going uphill. And then when they came back flying back, I mean, they just right by us.
Yeah. And also I said Sarah Goldman, Jen Watkins, and Deb Sweeney for those 3 women. And they were the top female team. They did 8th overall. I think they did really great. But when we saw them, they're like, oh, we're not competition. We're not a threat to you. And I kept thinking, oh, that's just so not true. They might have thought that, but they had said they skipped a couple of trek points, which put us a couple points ahead. But we also knew that if they got ahead of us enough, they would have more time at the trek at the paddle to pick up 2 more points. So they were definitely contenders and competition and a threat, even though they
absolutely were. And what's the power line point? That was on the 12-hour, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yes.
And so that one before that and the power line point, they were pretty much, right on. is with their navigation. I think that power line one was another one where we kind of were like, what are we doing? And we kind of went in, but didn't go in, and then went down to the line, and then came back and went right in where we had gone in before.
Yeah, I wasn't nabbing that, obviously, but Chip, what happened there? Like, we did stop and we did go in at basically the same place they did, but we gave up and then had to come back, and they were long gone by the time we found that point.
Yeah, like three things happened on that one. It was like they had dropped their bikes a little earlier than I was expecting, and I was kind of following the curves and trying to do all the timing and everything, and I knew they were generally in the right area, but I think I wanted to go a little further or something like that. But whatever. We ended up like, okay, they're good navigators, so let's just drop our bikes and we'll go in with them. The compass wasn't lining up. I felt like we wanted to be going kind of northeast. And I remember as we're following, I'm like, we're going northwest. Like maybe this.
I looked at that with you too, and I was like, no, that's not, because I asked you what direction should we be pointing, and I was like, no, that's not matching up.
Yeah, it wasn't matching up. And then so we're kind of looking at the map and thinking maybe there's a parallel spur or something. And I turn around and Jim Farmer goes flying by. So I'm like, crap. So okay, we've got whatever. We dropped bikes because they dropped bikes. Then the compass isn't lining up, and then Farmer, who's a really good navigator, goes blowing by. And I was like, we got something wrong here. And also, there was some talk of power lines, but the power lines were not showing up on the map the same way that they were aligned in real life. So just a whole comedy of errors, and all of a sudden we ended up going down the power lines and realizing the error, and then backtracking, and then finding it no problem. But
I think that's the difference between racing really, really super fast in a 12-hour to a longer race. You're just making quick split-second decisions and kind of going with it.
Yeah.
And it's both directions. It's like, oops, we're wrong. Let's correct fast. And then you make an error in your correction. Like, I was like, damn it.
Yeah. So ladies, if you're listening, you need to change your name now to Rational Confidence.
Yes.
Or
not irrational confidence, because
No, we are a threat.
Yeah, there you go. We are a threat.
That's what their name should be. Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
And it was super motivating. Guys, you remember at the end where we had come out from the trek. We only got 1 point, and then we see them come out from the trek at the very end, and we know that we're like behind them on the way to the finish. So we were just assuming they've got the same number of points we have, if not more, because they were on the bikes before we were to get there. And so now like we're hammering, and then they went around the one island and we did the cut through. Now we're side by side, and we were talking to them, and they're like, no, we're not a threat. And we finally figured out they hadn't gotten any more points than we did. So we're like, shwoo. But it was very motivating chasing them there for a while, thinking that, oh, heck yeah, they're a threat. We need to hammer.
And when they went around the island to the left, we went to the right. We were like, oh, yes, I think we got some on them.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that. But that last trek, that's when we really knew we're not clearing this course. It's just not possible. And we pulled into an inlet that was not the suggested one by the race designer, Josh. So I was not too happy about that, because I thought, well, there's a reason, they told us to go in the other place. But anyway, it wasn't too poor of a choice. It worked fine. We got a little scrambled because roads weren't appearing like they should. And
I know I talked to the Oswalds again later, and they ended up finding the road up higher that we never got to. And they said it was about 25 minutes of scrambling on their hands and knees, like pulling themselves up the mountain. They said it was horrible, and the road was not very good. So that was just a super challenging section.
Wow. I wonder, had we known that, if we would have done anything differently. Probably not. I mean,
I think even if we would have gone down into that other inlet, we would have been in the same situation. We would have found that other trail. We might have tried to go. I think it actually saved us a little bit, because had we gone down to 4 to that inlet, we would have noticed that road that we saw right off the bat wasn't it, and we would have tried to go up higher and lost time.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
And I think us going into that earlier inlet kind of kept us in that, that long little reentrant little I guess, small valley that we were hiking through. And then we kind of figured out we'd gone too far and ended up going just up to the one.
Yeah.
But I think we would have lost more time trying to find where the road truly was.
And talk about stress. When we got to the attack point once we finally realized where we actually were, and we decided, here's the attack point, but it's like 300, 400 feet up from where we were, a climb, and we were running out of time. And then the farmers are there too. And we know we all have the same amount of points. And we're like, well, are we going to go for the point or not go for the point? Like, are we going to play it safe or not safe? And it didn't take us too long to decide to go for it. And we just went bounding straight up that hill. And it really, I think, probably gave us all a little bit of motivation knowing the farmers are right on our tails.
Right on our tail. Like if we make any errors, they're passing us because
yeah,
we're solid on that. Yeah.
So we climbed that hill faster. Especially Mark. He got to the point first, and then we had to run back down, and we barely got ahead of them. I mean, we finished 10 minutes ahead of the farmers, and yeah, I mean, we got second place overall, which is exciting. But it was pretty fun to have that competition all day long. It's just all the time. There's nothing that we could do wrong.
When we came off that hill and we were going back to the boat, we were hammering it pretty hard getting back to that boat.
Oh yeah, I was having a hard time keeping up. I was like, I do not want to trip. And remember, we have Alaska coming up. I was like, I don't want to fall. I don't want to get hurt. So I was like slowing down a little bit, trying to keep up with you guys and just not die.
You had Andrea in the back of us going, we're not going to, we're on time. We're on time. We've got to go. Yeah. We've got to go.
I think we missed our cutoff. I think we left on the boat like 4 minutes late or something like that. And but we also, I think we had 4 extra minutes on the clock. So we had a little bit of buffer. But yeah, anytime we pass our self-imposed cutoff, Andrea starts losing her mind.
Well, rightly so, especially in a paddle, because there's only so fast it feels like you can go. You can push a little harder, but to make a big difference, I think it's impossible on a paddle. Maybe running or biking, I feel like you could make a difference pushing harder. Maybe that's not true, but it was tight. Like
it was
10
tight.
minutes spare. What the farmers had 30 seconds when they came in, and we were like 10 minutes before them. So we really only had 10 more minutes, which, that's a little nerve-wracking.
Yep. That's what makes it fun, though.
Yeah, it does.
And of course, you got to get out of the boat and then run up a hill to get to the finish line, which was hard.
That's
it's like, oh my God, you got to get out of the boat.
Like, we are not running up this hill.
Yeah.
Seriously, like we had time to get up there. And anyway, you guys decided we needed to run. And because of that, you both had like an arm on my back, like pushing me up the hill. Yeah, that was great. I could run like that any day. That was no problem. But running myself was like, I don't even know if it would have been any faster than me hiking fast up the hill. It was a hill straight up. I mean, it was a road. Anyway, thanks guys. I appreciate the push. I don't think it made any difference in our standing.
Where all the media is, you got to run to the finish so that you look fast,
I haven't seen any of that media.
It'll eventually come out.
It'd be nice to see some photos and stuff. I hope they put that out. But yeah.
Okay, so we're done with it. We still have another race to talk about. So let's see. Anything about that evening, right? They had food, everybody's chilling, hanging out. We did awards. That was all super fun.
It was super fun. They were supposed to do the karaoke, but I wasn't having any of it. I was ready to go rest for the next day.
No one was having any of it. I don't think anybody truly wanted karaoke I was ready for bed.
Yes.
We needed it, So, but it felt like there was enough time to eat and relax and, be ready to go the next day. It was pretty cool.
Definitely.
Okay, so we get up for the 8-hour. We know it's supposed to be rainy, and it was. Not downpoury, but it was rainy, which it's kind of a bummer. And I wish, I don't know, the second night I was talking to Hunter about the foam roller and all this stuff. And my gosh, I wish we got done with that damn 12-hour. And had a foam roller and stretched and took care of our legs because it felt like I woke up the next day and I've got like cinder blocks that are stiff. So this one starts off, what they gave us our maps. We had 20 minutes with the maps or so.
I think so, yeah.
And the same thing, wasn't there? There was a trek in the middle that was an unknown, right?
Yep. And we could go, it was a circular bike ride, so we could go counter or clock, we ended up going counterclockwise.
Yeah. And on this one, I guess it was similar. We wanted to take the harder route down there so that we knew that no matter what, the ride back was going to be the shorter route, right? So we timed it. We timed it. Maybe it took us 2 hours or 2.5 hours. I can't remember. So then we knew that the other side was shorter and straighter. And so I think we left ourselves like an hour and a half to get back. Because this was a really tight course. So it was one of those, we were not sure, or do we need to cut points to get home and leave time for the paddle. So we tried to be really smart logistically. And I think we pretty much nailed that.
It was a tough ride though. It was some ups.
Oh yeah.
And given that we thought the previous day we would clear, but we didn't, we still felt like we're not sure about this one. And I think we still thought, we'll just go as hard as we can until we know we have to drop some, which we didn't have to drop any, which is great. And the design was really cool in that way. There was no prologue either. So we started on the bikes and it's straight uphill again. But that was kind of fun. That separated us pretty quickly. And right away, there were teams that went left and teams that went right. So, you kind of knew who made what decisions. And then, like you guys said, then you come back and the end was a paddle section that you could drop points then. So we didn't feel like we needed to worry too much about strategy. Overall, our overall strategy was basically we'll drop points at the end if we need to. Right. Otherwise, we're going for everything and we're going to try to go as efficiently as we can to everywhere. We didn't have maps for the trek. We got that when we got there. So just like the day before.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was slightly different in our planning because the day before we just decided to get as quickly as we could to the unknown. But this day we decided to make sure the harder route was done first.
Yeah, the longer route.
Different strategy.
Yep.
Anyway.
But of course, and the flight guys, Oswald's weren't there. So it's Jim and Susie again that we were like, okay, that's our top competition. And, we're good friends with them. So we even hung out with them before the race at their house. So it was kind of, this is like fun because you can be like friendly competition. But so they were right on our ass, like right out of the gate. They took the same turn we did and did the same route strategy around. We stayed in front of them, but every time we come out from a checkpoint, it was like them and another couple teams, a couple solos right behind us. Like if we made any errors, they're passing us. But it was super fun seeing them over and over and over and over on the course because we kept kind of bouncing around each other. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's worth saying that in adventure racing, if you ever come to a sign that says road closed, it doesn't apply to you. Like I remember we took that route and there was some construction on a bridge. So we had to, carry our bikes through the mud and the stream and the washed out road. And I remember thinking, I hope everybody knows that, if you haven't raced before, this doesn't apply to you. Like you just go usually if there's, I'm not going to say private property because we usually stay away from private property, but there's times when, we just go through areas that you might think you shouldn't, and you actually should.
Yeah. Usually, I say usually, the race directors will tell you.
Yeah.
If they don't tell you, you just go.
Yeah.
Although, as we talked about on the 50 hour, we popped out in somebody's backyard at night with headlamps in West Virginia, and they made it very clear we shoot people that do that, And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. We're lost. Sorry. And it was like, oh, that was a close one.
Well, that's like C2C, long time ago, going through backyards in the middle of the Ocala National Forest is probably not the best idea at 3:00 in the morning.
No.
Yeah, good point. Anyway, on this day, it was necessary
It was legal
to go through the closed road sign. And we got up to the track.
Yeah. And man, we had learned our lesson from the day one. We were surgical. I think we checked and double checked and measured, and it felt like we cleaned that just perfect. Even took a couple hacks, the going up the spur instead of taking the road around. I think that saved us a ton of time. That was a good call, Mark.
Yeah, that was a good route choice because we passed Leninger and them on the first 2 points as they were coming out before we even gotten the 2 points. And then we went up the spur and got to the next point, which he was heading to before he got there.
Yeah.
Yeah, super fun to see Jeff and Radistina racing because they're not
Yes.
usually racing. Apparently they didn't have any information about the course, so they were able to race, and fun to pass them. But I am proud of us too for something we don't always do, which, going up the spur meant pretty significant elevation change going up. Like a lot of times we try to save ourselves and, save the elevation by going a little bit longer to save a little bit of elevation change, but not this time. Like, no, we're just going to go, and this is the straightest, most efficient way. And it paid off. That was really cool. I was proud of us for that.
Yeah,
Yep.
It worked out good.
Yeah.
And we were consistently running the flats and the downhills. I thought that was good. Even on hard terrain, we were moving really fast consistently. And it felt like, I mean, I know that first bike leg kind of sucked because of our legs and everything. You're trying to recover from the previous day. But it seemed like by the time we got to the trek, everything's lubed up and warm, and we were able to push hard and run.
Yeah. I felt
Good.
surprisingly good the second day, in some ways, maybe even better than the first day. I don't know if I'm a slow warm up, like as you get older, it takes a lot longer for me to get things moving. And maybe day one got me loosened up for day two.
You
Yep.
guys both were super strong day two. I felt like I was the one dragging on day two. And I don't think I was too far behind you guys, but I never felt great. I always felt like, ugh, this is rough. And luckily, I didn't have any critical role on the team. So it was kind of a luxury kind of to be like, oh, all I need to do is take care of myself. Like, I don't have to take care of anyone else. I can just focus on what I need to do to, manage all of this. And yeah, it actually did kind of feel like a luxury to take care of myself. I take care of people outside of racing, I'm a mom. So it was kind of cool to take care of myself. And one thing that I do that I think some people would think that's a little bit much, but if I can follow in someone's footsteps, like it's usually Chip, because I don't know, I'm just so used to his gait or his cadence that if I can just say I'm going to put my feet in his footsteps, I can seem to keep going, and it doesn't seem as hard. But anytime like you put me in front and I'm like, oh, I'm just too slow, I get nervous, I go too fast, whatever. It's silly. But if I can just follow somebody right in front of me, focus on their feet and keep up, I appreciate that I had you guys to set that pace for us.
Yeah, and
I
once
thought
again, sorry.
I was going to say you moved well. So as I said, there were no issues on my part.
Only
Yeah.
in my mind. I think I complained less on day two, but only because I had that padded seat from Milan. That was really, really helpful. Anyway,
Yes.
moving on.
And this was another, I think we talked about this, like at C2C was similar, where it was Mark and Mike. It was like the team was very equal. Like we're all about the same speed. And that just feels really good. A lot of times, if you're on a team and you got one person that's dragging behind, whatever reason, it's just like you're feeling great and somebody else is feeling bad, and nobody likes that. It's like you want the team to be equal. It's like if we're all suffering the same, we're all pushing ourselves the same. It just feels a lot better than having one person in the pain cage just suffering, and like we're having fun and this other person's suffering. So I think it's
That's
way
hard.
better where it's just everybody's just going and running and having a good old time. And um, so I don't know. I guess that just makes it so much more fun for me when nobody's truly suffering.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so no navigation mistakes. We just did everything like just right. And we got to the paddle. We were able to get all those paddle points. We, of course, saw a lot of teams out there. there were some choices. I guess we did it clockwise again, and that worked out well, mostly because it put us at the rope swing, knowing that we had plenty of time to get to the finish. And Mark did the rope swing. So if you were there, maybe you saw some people doing that, but we're like, well, anybody want to do it? And Mark's like, yeah, I want to do it.
And that was a lot taller and higher rope swing than you think once you got going.
I'm sure it looked like it. I felt like you fell probably 20 feet when you let go of the rope, that you had like 20 feet to fall to the water.
Once we got past the girl not wanting to jump.
I know. I was like, that girl needs to go or get out of the way. Like
You saw me when I was standing up there. I kept like inching. I'd make a couple little steps closer, kind of trying to like, just, do you mind letting me go? Do you, I'd look down at you guys. I was like, well, we are racing here. So, but
and
finally,
thing,
you guys said, well, hey, what if he goes? And she was like, yes, please.
Yeah. The other thing I was worried about, Andrea and I just took this like wilderness first aid class, and like, so this girl is like, she looks like if she lets go of this thing, she's bouncing down this thing and it's going to break her leg or something. And of course, on my Instagram, it's like constant skateboard crashes and auto crashes and people doing dumb stuff and getting hurt. And I'm like, I've seen like 1,000 rope swings go wrong on my Instagram. And so I was like, this lady's going to get hurt. And then we're going to have to be the paramedics. And then a team's going to pass us. Like, this sucks. Like, so I was so glad that you were able to cut in line, get out of there before she went. I thought she was going to get hurt. But yeah, that was super fun. But speaking of kids, the other thing,
go right after us, and she did good.
I would say she did okay, but she did not let go of the rope at the pinnacle of the swing. She let at the bottom, and she came real close to getting hurt.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, she did better than I would do.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't do it.
Because you wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't do it. So I felt for her, luckily we weren't in a hurry, but it did start to get a little uncomfortable because we're like, okay, we got to get going. But yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. I'm sure some people do have fun doing that sort of thing, but not me. And so it is a video, so if you watch our YouTube that's going to come out, you'll see Mark flying through the air on the rope swing.
You guys should have just like gone out there and then just basically I could have just rope swinged right into the boat and we could have kept on going.
That would have been funny.
Yeah. I don't think that would work so well.
No.
But you are a physical therapist. You would know how to fix yourself.
True. Well, maybe.
I don't know. You've given us some great advice on specific stretches and massage techniques, and man, it's been really helpful. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I enjoy it.
You must be really good at your work.
Thank you. Is your knee better, Chip?
It's getting there. I'm playing it like a banjo, like you taught me. But yeah, I'm sitting there. This was like right before the second race, I think. And you were like, tell me what your knee hurts. And then you dug around for a second, stuck your finger in and just like jammed it. And I was like, what? And you're like, yep, that's what it is. And then you're just stabbing me with your finger. And, but it worked it out, or my knee didn't hurt as bad for sure. And so I've been, now I did it a whole lot after you did it, and then I did it. And then of course my knee was sore because I've been poking on the stupid thing.
Right.
But either way, I guess it's like a hamstring on the right side of the knee. It's like the weirdest thing ever. But either way, I've been massaging. I went for a run today, and I feel a lot better than I did after the Rev 350 when my knee was jacked up after that race.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The whole goal was to get through that race, the Hogback, without getting injured for Alaska, and I think both of us did it. So we're happy and training up.
Well, I know for you, it's a good mental thing to know that it's a muscle and not the knee.
Yeah, totally. Not the joint, but it's like the tendon-y stuff. So, and it's not gonna, if I keep going on it, even though it hurts, it's not gonna do a permanent injury where I need surgery or something like that. Yeah, that's doing good.
I think this might be an indicator of aging. Feels like all my aches and pains are tendon related.
Yeah.
Ugh, I don't like that.
So another one, we were talking about the kid jumping off the thing, but we also got to talk about the kid on the bike. And I wish I knew their names, but it was a dad and a son team.
Oh
Remember
yeah.
that?
Oh,
And
yes.
right before the race, he came up and he's like, "Hey, I listened to your podcast. I got your Phoenix lights." And he had like really studied a lot of our podcast and just trying to learn how to race and using some of our techniques. And so he was stoked to talk with us prior to the race. And then on that bike back, he was telling his son, you see Team thisABILITY is gonna come blasting by us. You wait, you wait. And then sure enough, we came flying up that hill. And then we talked to because the kid was falling back a little bit. And he could barely ride the bike up the hill. He was a pretty young kid. And we were like, "Hey dude, you're doing a great job," and yada yada and yada. And then go talk to the dad. And then we got that checkpoint, right? We blew past them, went up there, climbed a mountain up 200 feet or something to a high point, because every checkpoint's got to be on a high point, and then bomb back down, but they had passed us. And then we get to catch them again and did the same thing, telling the kid, "Good job, buddy," and all that kind of stuff. And then talked to the dad and then blew back up the hill. And, I think he told him, he's like, "Did you," like something like, "Did you see how fast they were going up that hill?" Like, just, they're killing themselves. And we just like, boom, rocket ship. But I think they were stoked to not only get the chance to talk to us prior to the race, but also chit chat while we're on the course. So I'm really glad we stopped to talk with them.
Well, I think and that's a lot of it. I know, I remember it was some either AR, back when he first started, he was either a Blue Ridge race. This is when I first started racing. And, back then we were just kind of like the new teams, we were just hanging out in the TAs. We were just getting to a TA when a top team had already like finished a whole section before us. And you were always kind of at awe, about how fast people can move, and do this stuff. And, it definitely is cool to, number one, see, that race, but also to be approachable to those people and to, like you guys do. You guys are very good at that, to, invite people to learn from you, to talk to you, to all that. Because there's been a few top teams that I've raced with or against over the years that aren't about that, and it's all business. There's no chatting, there's no talking. We're just out to race and to beat you. And, I like having fun along the way.
Yeah.
I do too. I do wish we remembered those guys' names. The boy was in third grade. So I
He was
think
11 years old.
yeah, the youngest racer for the weekend, and he was doing great. Like,
Well, he was rocking it up the hill. He may
yeah,
not have thought he was, but for being that young and having to do all those hills, he was doing good.
Yeah. That was a long bike ride.
yes, it was.
And also,
Yeah.
he was saying that his son didn't like a lot of other team sports for whatever reason. Adventure racing really clicked with him, and so he's getting more and more involved in all of that. So I think that was another thing. It was the fact that we stopped and chatted with him and we were friendly and all that. I think it really motivated him to like, I got to do the next race and yada yada.
Well, and he'll remember that kind of stuff, and so that's what's cool.
Yeah, totally.
It was nice to see the Adventure Youth USA team there too. They're high schoolers, right? Miles Branton was leading up that team.
Yep.
It was great to see some young racers. So
Seems like we're seeing more and more of it, so that's nice.
I sure hope so. Yeah.
Yep. And the younger you start, I mean, like we didn't start racing until what, we were 40 or something like that. Like imagine knowing map and compass when you're like young and you got your 10,000 hours doing navigation before you're even 20 years old. Like, man, then you have your youth and you have your experience.
You don't know how many times I've wondered, gosh, why couldn't have I had this sport when I was back in college?
Yep.
Oh my God. I was like, I could actually move then,
Totally.
Well, I did my first 5K at 37 years old. So
Wow.
I don't know what you're talking about. I wouldn't have been able to do it back then. I mean, I wish I had been more athletic, but better late than never, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yep. So at the 8 hour, I guess, I think we came in with 40 minutes left on the clock. So that was fun. Also, we were able to see the other teams as they were coming in and cheer them on. It was fun to get a win. That was a win overall. because flight didn't show up the second day. But
Hey,
so
that day we
fun.
might have got them. So
Yeah,
Yeah, you never know.
that's true. And both days we were the top co-ed team. So that was really good. And both days when Jim and Susie were just right behind us, right?
Yeah.
And they were the next place in line. They were, I mean, again, we're basically equal when it comes down to our skill and our speed. So it's like if we made any error, they would have been able to pass us.
mhm.
I have to toot our own horn though. We were the only team to clear that 8-hour race, which is
That's
kind of
true.
exciting. That's
That was exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
not, we're not always in that situation. So that was cool.
Yep. Especially after the first day where we had to leave 3 points out there. That was tough.
That was.
So all in all, and the other thing, it did stop raining pretty early on. I mean, it was wet, but like most of the day was just a beautiful day. A little bit hot, but it was super fun. But that last paddle when we knew we kind of had the lead and we didn't have to hammer so bad, we didn't have to be too stressed. We had time for a rope swing. We had time to sing some Queen.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's, oh, you need to be called out for one other thing too,
Yeah.
which was the
Oh,
only other time I got pretty grumpy.
yes, we did. We forgot to mention that.
Yeah, so I do think Mark was on my side on this one, but Chip sometimes steers the boat to the shade, which is nice sometimes when you're not racing, but when it adds time and distance just for a half a second more of shade, man,
Worth it.
that made me mad.
Well, what's the funniest thing about it is that was right when the girls' team was going left around the island. We were going right. We were thinking, Andrea's in the back in the middle, just the whole thing, the whole time going, we got to get back. We got to get back. We're short. We're short. We're not going to miss. We're going to miss, So we're hammering it. We're thinking they're in front of us, we're hammering. And all of a sudden, Chip's like, shade. And so I'm like, immediate, yes. First thought was like, no, we just need to stay straight on line. We're going. But I really do believe, to Chip's credit, that once we got over there by the shade, I think we moved faster because we caught current. So, which gave Chip a little bit of indication as far as in his decision to go for the shade. So,
But that's not why he went over there.
no. He went over there for the shade and then got the benefit at the end.
Yeah. But like the sun was like reflecting off the water directly in our eyes. It was just sucked, and it was there for a long time. This is late in the day, so your hat doesn't really work, and it's just miserable. I was like, "Come on, 30 meters over to the right, we get some shade. This is it." And then you get in the shade. It's like, "Oh, this is amazing."
Well,
Yeah,
because you notice right when we did that, we passed the the 4-person male team. We were right beside one of the boats. We passed them when we went to the shade.
yeah. And maybe it was the waves too, because I think the water was a little calmer. Yeah. Yeah, Andrea's losing her mind. I was like, no, this is the whatever. I think I said the person steering has the prerogative to take the course or something.
Yeah, it was like I wish I could remember how you phrased it, but basically it was your privilege to do what you wanted because you're the one steering the boat. Like,
Yeah.
what?
And then
Whatever.
Mark's like, I think the current was better. And I'm like, oh, let's go get some more current over there in the shade.
But you did notice I was keeping a little quiet there because there was a little bit of anger happening behind me.
See, I knew like Mark was being so quiet and polite. Like I knew he wasn't going to get involved if he didn't need to. And there's nothing Mark or I could do about it. Chip's steering the damn boat. But then I put Mark on the spot and I'm like, I don't know what I asked. Like I just asked you what you thought of it.
What's your thoughts were?
Yeah, the mutiny because of a
not what I would have
15-second, inefficiency for some comfort. Yeah, that was funny.
Oh, well, you don't do adventure racing to be comfortable. You just have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, usually. Anyway, that aside.
That was fun.
That was funny.
Was a fun weekend. It really was. It was great racing with you guys.
Oh, yeah. I'd do that race again in a second. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that. Next up, Andrea, you are the primary course designer for the Buff Betty. That's this coming weekend. I think is it sold out?
Nothing.
I don't think it's sold out, but there are, I think, almost 70 participants coming, which is pretty cool. And we
Wow.
both designed it, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a little more stressful, I want to say, than I kind of thought it would be because I want people to like it so much. I want it to just go so well that we put a lot of time into it, and it'll be fun to watch it play out. And of course, it'll be really fun to be with all the women, and it's usually such an empowering experience for everybody involved that I'm really excited about that. So that'll be coming up on Saturday.
What's the length of the race?
There's a 6-hour option and a 10-hour option. And the
Nice.
10-hour option, I'm pretty excited about the trek section because it's in a part of the park where there are absolutely no trails, and there's some options to swim. So we'll see if anyone decides to do that.
Nice.
Hard
Excited
navigation,
about both of them.
like hard navigation. Like there's not a lot of terrain, so you really have to kind of follow the shoreline and know where you are and do micro nav and pace
Thick and
count,
briary and spider
spider
webby. And
webs. Ugh.
when we came out of that section, we were just covered in pollen. It was almost like a blanket of pollen on us. It's
So I'm
probably
glad,
not that way anymore, but it's
I'm
going to
glad
be
nobody that's doing the race or was thinking about doing the race is listening to this podcast.
right.
They may not have signed up.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah, by the
maybe
time this
not.
comes out, it'll be probably over. But
I'm
also,
sure
we'll be
there's going
doing
to be some
media
ladies
during it,
that,
so
yeah.
we'll be hopefully doing Facebook updates and kind of live commentary and all of that kind of stuff. So we take over their Facebook page during the race a lot of times. So it should be a
Is
lot
it
of
tracked? Is it a tracker?
I
Are
think they
doing?
are going to be using live tracking. The last time they did it, they had live tracking because I was the media guy and I was able to chase everybody around to catch the top teams and follow them and with the video camera and all of that. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be tracked.
Awesome.
And then Alaska, that's going to be the next big one for us.
I'm jealous of you guys.
What's your next race, Mark?
I don't have anything signed up yet. I'm going to Glacier National Park this weekend.
Oh,
Oh, good.
yeah.
And then we're me and my wife are going to Michigan for a week-long trip in September.
And are
And
you going to take your mountain bike there?
no, we're flying and everything. Just doing. I'm going to rent bikes in Glacier to do the going to the Sun Road.
Oh,
And
yeah.
That's supposed to be really cool.
I had a guy on the phone today. I was trying to ask him about bikes for my daughter and her friends, because they're already in Tetons right now and they're going to meet me there. And they're renting e-bikes. And I told him, I was like, well, I'm still trying to decide what I'm doing, but just getting a regular bike. And so he goes, well, you do know that it's a lot of elevation and stuff going up there. And I'm like, oh, no, I'll be fine.
Yeah, well, we used e-bikes in Portugal and I liked them a lot more than I thought I would. And they were a lot more exercise than I thought they would be.
Oh, really?
Because we were trying to conserve the battery so much. And they're heavy bikes. If you're not using a lot of the capacity,
That's true.
If the battery died and you had to ride the bike, it's really hard. It's a good uphill.
Yeah.
So conserving battery, so we're sweating to death. But we probably were able to bike an extra 20 or 30 miles more than we would have been able to bike if we were just typical bike. So we got to see a lot of Portugal, did this entire route, and it was a lot of fun. And, bike shop. I mean, it may be because it was friends with the fella that showed us the course. So I think we ended up paying like 25 or $30 per bike. It was super cheap.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to go to Glacier National Park. We've never been.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But other than that,
that.
I'm thinking about doing, my local friend of mine here is doing a 250-mile mountain bike ride around a lot of the peaks around here. And so I'm thinking about doing that and then maybe going up to near Raleigh and doing one of In-Car's races in October.
Yeah, they're a great race organization.
So you haven't thought about nationals?
Well, I mistakenly put the Michigan trip on the same weekend as nationals and didn't realize it. So okay. I'm kind of bummed on that because I was like,
Yep.
Well, I hope we get to race again someday. I don't
Well,
know when it'll happen, but I hope it happens.
I'd like to plan it more often than not. So I think we've got between us three, and you put on Mike in there. I think we could keep getting faster and keep getting better. So
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. And we got Dave too. Dave was super fast in at the Rev 3. He was a very good fit for the team with Caitlin. So that I feel like this core team, we keep this configuration. Just it's nice. Just I don't know. Just everybody's about the same level on all the different things, and so it just feels really good racing with you guys.
yeah, I would like to get us into another race with, I don't know, like envisioning like endless mountains, or something like that where there's some other competition and teams, kind of like C2C.
Yep.
With even a little bit more competition would be fun for us to all race again and get, kind of be competitive with our team.
Absolutely.
Yep. I agree.
All right. Well, on that note, are we done?
I think we're done.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening.
Yep. Have a good evening.
All right. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please take a moment to leave a rating and a comment.
If you have a question for the next mailbag segment, call 757-354-4795 and leave us a voicemail or a text with your name, city you are calling from, and your question.
To find additional content, including the video versions of these discussions, you can search for thisABILITY Racing on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
We hope this podcast inspired you to focus on your abilities and plan your next adventure.
See you on the trail.